Frostline Echo, a sci-fi story. Part 1. The ice groaned beneath the crawler's treads. Long, low, whale-song vibrations that carried through the hull and into the bones of everyone aboard. Dr. Iris Ashford kept her eyes on the forward viewport, watching the pale horizon ripple with refrozen fractures. The examoon, designated K347F, had always been cold, but not like this. Not with this intent. "Temperature's dropping again," muttered Jen, their systems engineer, from the console behind her. 3 degrees in the last hour. That's not possible. We're not even in the shadow of the gas giant yet. Iris didn't answer. She didn't need to. They all knew the readings were wrong. Wrong in the way that made your stomach tighten and your instincts whisper turn back. But they couldn't turn back. Not after what the orbital scans had shown. A human heat signature, buried deep in the ice. And not just any human. One of their own. The crawler crested a ridge and the research outpost came into view. A cluster of modular domes half buried in frost, antennae bent like frozen reeds. The landing pad was a white slab, the shuttle resting on it like a trapped insect. Everything was coated in a thin, crystalline rime that hadn't been there when they left 6 hours ago. "Looks like we've been gone for a week," said Leora, the team's biologist, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet. "What the hell happened?" Iris keyed the comm base. "This is Field Team 1. We're approaching from the north ridge. Do you copy?" "Static." She tried again. "Base, respond." More static. A faint crackle. Then nothing. Jen swore under his breath. "Comms were fine when we left." "Maybe the storm front hit early," Leora offered, though her tone betrayed doubt. Iris didn't comment. She guided the crawler toward the outpost's airlock, the treads crunching over ice that seemed to thicken by the minute. The crawler's external thermometer ticked down another half degree. When they finally docked, the airlock's outer door refused to cycle. "Manual override," Iris said. Jen pried open the panel and yanked the lever. The door shuttered, then slid open with a sound like cracking bones. Inside, the lights flickered weakly. Frost coated the walls in delicate fractal patterns, as if the cold had grown roots. "Something's wrong," Leora whispered. Iris stepped inside, boots crunching on a thin layer of ice. "Stay sharp. Helmets on until we confirm atmosphere." They moved through the corridor, breath echoing in their helmets, the silence oppressive. The outpost felt abandoned, but not in the usual way, not like people had left, but like they had been removed. The central hub door was half open, jammed by a wedge of ice. Iris forced it aside and stepped through. Her breath caught. The room was filled with frost-shrouded equipment, overturned chairs, and a thin mist that curled around their ankles. But that wasn't what made her stop. It was the figure standing in the center of the room, frozen solid, encased in a pillar of ice that reached from floor to ceiling. A human figure, wearing a suit identical to theirs. Leora gasped. Jen stumbled back, nearly slipping. Iris approached slowly, her heartbeat thudding in her ears. The ice was perfectly clear, like polished glass. She could see the face behind the visor. Her own face, eyes closed, expression peaceful, as if asleep. Leora's voice trembled. "Iris, that's you." Iris didn't speak. She couldn't. Her throat had closed around the words. Jen circled the ice pillar, scanning it with his wrist pad. No signs of trauma, suit integrity intact. But the ice, it's not natural. It's structured, layered, like it formed all at once. Leora swallowed hard. "How is this possible? You are wearing tomorrow's date on the mission patch." Iris forced herself to look. The patch on the frozen suit read, K347F Expedition, Day 12, March 11th. Today was March 10th. Her stomach twisted. "This is a prank," Jen said weakly. "Has to be. Some kind of sick joke." "No one knew we'd be out here," Leora whispered. "No one could have staged this." Iris stepped closer, placing her gloved hand against the ice. It was so cold it burned. Her frozen counterpart's face was serene, almost resigned. A faint hum vibrated through the floor. The lights flickered. Then the temperature dropped again, so fast that frost bloomed across their visors. Jen checked his pad. Another 5 degrees. That's impossible. We need to get back to the shuttle. Iris tore her gaze away from the ice. Not yet. We need to understand what happened here. Understand it later. Jen snapped. If the temperature keeps dropping like this, the shuttle's systems will freeze. We'll be trapped. Leora pointed toward the far wall. Look, another ice pillar. Another frozen figure. This one was Jen. His face twisted in a silent scream. Jen staggered backward. No. No, no, no. Iris's pulse hammered. Scan it. He hesitated, then raised his pad. Suit date, March 14th. That's 4 days from now, Leora whispered. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls. The frost on the floor thickened, creeping toward them like living tendrils. Iris forced herself to breathe. We need to regroup. Check the logs. See if anyone left a message. They moved to the command console. The screens were dim, flickering but functional. Iris tapped through the logs. Most were corrupted, but one file remained intact. A video log. Timestamp, March 12 to 3:17. Tomorrow. Iris hesitated, then opened it. The screen filled with static, then resolved into an image. Her own face, alive, exhausted, frost clinging to her hair. Iris Ashford, day 12. The recording began, voice shaking. If you're seeing this, then the loop hasn't broken. We tried everything, every route, every choice. It always ends the same. Leora covered her mouth. The recorded Iris continued. The moon isn't just cold. It's reactive. It responds to us, to our decisions. Every time we try to leave, the temperature drops. Every time we split up, someone freezes. Every time we stay together, we find more of us in the ice. Jen whispered, "This can't be real." The recording leaned closer, eyes hollow. We found the first body on day 10. It was me, then Jen, then Leora, then all of us. Different versions, different timelines, all ending here. Iris felt her knees weaken. The recorded version's voice dropped to a whisper. There is no escape. Not for us. Not for any version of us. The moon is a trap, a loop, a mirror. It shows us what we will become. Static crackled across the screen. But if you're watching this, maybe you can break the pattern. Maybe you can choose differently. Or maybe this is just another iteration. Another echo. The recording reached toward the camera, frost spreading across her glove. Whatever you do, don't. The screen went black. Silence filled the room. Then the hum returned, louder, deeper, resonating through the ice pillars. Leora's voice was barely audible. What was she going to say? Jen backed away from the console. We need to leave. Now, before we become... He gestured helplessly at the frozen bodies. That. Iris stared at the blank screen, her reflection faint in the frost. Wait, she said softly. Look. The console displayed a new message. Incoming transmission. Source unknown. The three of them exchanged glances. Iris opened it. A single line of text appeared. You have been here before. The temperature dropped again. The lights went out, and the ice began to grow. Part 2. Darkness swallowed the hub. For a heartbeat, none of them moved. Their helmet lamps flickered on automatically, thin cones of light slicing through the mist that had begun to curl upward from the floor. The temperature drop was so sudden that Iris felt her joints ache, as if the cold were reaching inside her suit. Jen's voice cracked over comms. Backup power should have kicked in. Something's draining the grid. Leora took a step closer to Iris, her breath trembling audibly. The ice, it's growing faster. She wasn't exaggerating. Frost crawled across the floor in branching, fractal veins, racing toward their boots. The ice pillars containing their frozen doubles glistened, expanding, as if inhaling. Iris forced her voice steady. Move, back to the crawler. We regrouped there. They turned toward the corridor. It was gone. Not collapsed. Sealed. A wall of ice had grown over the doorway, thick and opaque, like a glacier that had formed in seconds. Jen swore. It's reacting to us. Blocking exits. Leora's voice was barely a whisper. Just like the recording said. Iris scanned the room, searching for another way out. The maintenance hatch near the ceiling, small, narrow, but still visible, hadn't yet been overtaken by ice. There. She pointed. We climb. Jen stared at it. That's barely wide enough for one person. It's wide enough, Iris said. Move. They crossed the room, boots crunching through the rapidly thickening frost. The hum in the walls deepened, resonant, almost alive. Iris felt it in her teeth. Jen boosted Leora up first. She grabbed the hatch's manual wheel and twisted. It resisted, frozen in place. She gritted her teeth and forced it, ice cracking around the edges. The hatch opened with a metallic groan. Go, Iris urged. Leora pulled herself inside. Jen followed, scrambling awkwardly. Iris climbed last, the frost nipping at her heels like snapping jaws. As she pulled the hatch closed behind her, the ice surged upward, engulfing the space they had just escaped. The maintenance shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for their suits. Their helmet lights illuminated a tunnel of metal coated in a thin sheen of frost. The air was still heavy, as if the moon itself were holding its breath. Jen crawled ahead, muttering, This shaft leads to the generator room. If we can restart the backup grid, maybe we can thaw the doors. Leora's voice trembled. And if the moon freezes the generator too? Jen didn't answer. They crawled in silence, the only sounds their breathing and the faint creak of metal contracting in the cold. Iris felt the temperature dropping even here, deep inside the outpost's infrastructure. How low is it now? She asked. Jen checked his wrist pad. -93. And falling. That's impossible, Leora whispered. We'd be dead already. Iris felt the truth settle like a stone in her stomach. It's not the air temperature, she said. It's the moon. It's targeting us. The cold is selective. Jen shuddered. That's not better. They reached the end of the shaft. Jen kicked open the grate and dropped into the generator room. Or what used to be the generator room. The machinery was encased in ice. Thick, opaque, ancient-looking ice that seemed to pulse faintly with internal light. Frost coated every surface, forming jagged spires that reached toward the ceiling like frozen stalagmites. Leora dropped down beside Jen, her breath catching. This wasn't here earlier. We were in this room before we left for the dig site. It was normal. Iris landed last, scanning the room. The moon accelerated the freeze. It's adapting. Jen approached the generator, brushing frost from the control panel. The ice reformed instantly, creeping over his glove like living tissue. He jerked his hand back. It's growing toward heat sources. Leora hugged herself. Then it's hunting us. The hum intensified, vibrating through the floor. The ice spires trembled, as if responding. Iris stepped forward. We need to keep moving. There's another exit through the storage bay. Jen hesitated. That's deeper inside the outpost. Exactly, Iris said. Which means the ice might not have reached it yet. They moved quickly, weaving between frozen machinery. The storage bay door was half open, jammed by a wedge of ice. Iris forced it aside and they slipped through. The storage bay was vast, filled with crates, equipment racks, and supply containers. Frost coated everything, but the ice hadn't yet overtaken the room. Leora exhaled shakily. At least it's not sealed. Jen checked his pad. Temperatures still dropping. -96. Iris scanned the room. We need thermal gear. Anything that can buy us time. They split up, searching the crates. Iris found emergency heat packs, mostly drained, but a few still functional. Jen located a portable thermal cutter, its battery half-frozen but usable. Leora uncovered a crate of insulated blankets, stiff with frost but intact. As they gathered supplies, a faint sound echoed through the bay. A tapping, soft, rhythmic, coming from the far wall. Leora froze. Did you hear that? Jen swallowed. Probably the ice expanding. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. Iris raised her lamp, illuminating the far wall. Her breath caught. The ice there was thinner, almost translucent, and behind it a shape moved. A human shape. A hand pressed against the ice from the other side. Then another. Then a face. Iris's own face. Eyes open. Mouth moving silently. Leora screamed. Jen stumbled backward, dropping the thermal cutter. No. No, no, no. The frozen Iris behind the ice pounded harder. Her movements frantic, desperate. Frost spread across her visor, obscuring her features. Iris felt her heart hammering. It's another version. Another timeline. Leora backed away, shaking. Why is she behind the wall? How did she get there? Jen's voice cracked. Maybe in her timeline, the storage bay froze first. Maybe she got trapped. The ice thinned further, cracking like glass. The other Iris's hand pushed through, shards falling to the floor. Iris grabbed Jen's arm. We need to go. Now. They ran toward the secondary exit, boots slipping on frost. Behind them, the ice wall shattered, and the frozen version of Iris collapsed onto the floor, limbs stiff, suit coated in rime. She didn't move. Leora sobbed. Is she dead? Iris didn't look back. She was already dead. They reached the exit door. It was partially frozen, but not sealed. Jen used the thermal cutter to melt the ice around the frame. The door groaned open, revealing a narrow corridor leading deeper into the outpost. As they stepped through, the lights flickered on. Not the dim emergency lights. Full power. The corridor illuminated in a warm, golden glow. Leora blinked. How? Jen stared at the ceiling. The generator was frozen solid. This shouldn't be possible. Iris felt a chill crawl up her spine. It's not the generator. The lights brightened further, almost painfully bright. Then the speakers crackled. A voice echoed through the corridor. Her voice. Iris Ashford. Day 12. If you're hearing this, you're too late. Leora covered her ears. Make it stop. The voice continued, calm and hollow. We tried every route, every choice, every variation. The moon adapts. It anticipates. It reacts. Jen shook his head. This isn't a recording. It's speaking now. The voice shifted, becoming distorted, layered with static. You cannot escape. You cannot change the outcome. You are already part of the ice. The lights flickered, then dimmed to a cold blue. The temperature dropped again. Iris steadied herself. Keep moving. Don't listen to it. They hurried down the corridor. Frost crept along the walls, forming delicate patterns that resembled branching neural networks. Like the moon was thinking, calculating. The corridor opened into the medical bay, and they stopped. The room was filled with bodies. Dozens of them, all frozen, all versions of themselves. Some standing, some collapsed, some reaching toward the door as if begging for escape. Leora fell to her knees, sobbing. How many times have we died here? Jen backed away, trembling. This is a graveyard. Iris forced herself to look. Each frozen version wore a different mission patch date. Some from days ahead, some from weeks, one from a month in the future. Her voice was barely audible. The loop isn't just repeating, it's branching. Every choice creates a new timeline, and every timeline ends here. The hum in the walls intensified, vibrating through the floor. The ice on the bodies began to crack, shifting, as if they were waking. Iris grabbed Leora's arm. We have to go. Now. They ran through the medical bay, weaving between frozen corpses of themselves. The ice cracked louder, echoing like gunshots. As they reached the far door, a hand grabbed Iris's ankle. She screamed, kicking free. The frozen version of herself on the floor had moved, its fingers twitching, ice cracking along its arm. Jen yanked the door open. They stumbled through, slamming it behind them. The corridor beyond was dark, lit only by their helmet lamps. The hum faded, replaced by a low, distant rumble. Leora wiped her visor, voice shaking. Where now? Iris steadied her breathing. The shuttle. We get to the shuttle and launch manually. Jen stared at her. The recording said we never escaped. Maybe they made different choices, Iris said. Maybe this time is different. Leora swallowed. What if it's not? Iris met her gaze. Then we die trying. They moved quickly, following the corridor toward the landing pad. The walls trembled, frost spreading in jagged lines. The rumble grew louder, like something massive shifting beneath the ice. As they rounded a corner, the floor buckled. A fissure tore through the corridor, splitting the metal like paper. A blast of freezing air surged upward, carrying shards of ice that sliced across their suits. Jen stumbled, nearly falling into the chasm. Iris grabbed his arm, pulling him back. The fissure widened, revealing a cavern beneath the outpost. An abyss filled with glowing blue ice, pulsing like a heartbeat. Leora stared into it, horrified. The moon is hollow. Iris shook her head. Not hollow, alive. The ice pulsed again, brighter, and the fissure expanded, swallowing the corridor behind them. Jen pointed to a maintenance ladder on the far wall. There, it leads to the surface. They sprinted toward it as the floor collapsed behind them. Iris climbed first, the metal rungs freezing beneath her gloves. Leora followed, then Jen. As they ascended, the cavern below glowed brighter, the ice shifting like a living organism. They reached the surface hatch. Iris forced it open, and a blast of frigid wind hit them. The surface of the moon was unrecognizable. The landscape had changed, twisted, reshaped by ice that formed towering spires and ridges. The sky was a swirling vortex of frost and pale light, and the shuttle was encased in ice. A massive glacier had grown over it, burying it completely. Jen collapsed to his knees. No, 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 no. Leora sobbed. We're trapped. Iris stared at the frozen shuttle, her breath shaking. There has to be another way. The ground trembled. The ice spires shifted, turning toward them like antennae. A voice echoed across the frozen plain. Not through speakers, through the air itself, through the ice, through their bones. You have been here before. The temperature plummeted. The ice began to rise around their boots, and the moon waited. Part 3. The ice rose around their boots like grasping hands, creeping up their ankles in delicate crystalline filigree. Iris kicked free, shards scattering across the frozen plain. The wind howled, a hollow, resonant sound that seemed to echo from beneath the surface rather than above it. Jen's voice trembled. It's hurting us. Leora clutched her arms to her chest. Where? There's nowhere left. Iris scanned the horizon. The landscape had changed again. Ice spires twisting into impossible shapes, arching overhead like ribs of a colossal creature. The sky churned with pale vortices, streaks of light spiraling inward toward a single point directly above them. A focal point. Convergence. The moon was not reacting randomly. It was directing. Iris steadied her breath. We move. South Ridge. There's a secondary comms relay there. If we can reach it. Jen cut her off. The relay won't matter. The moon is jamming everything. Then we try anyway, Iris said. Standing still is death. The ice beneath them cracked sharply, as if agreeing. They ran. The wind tore at them, carrying flecks of ice that stung like needles. The ground shifted underfoot, the ice flexing like muscle. The spires around them groaned, bending subtly as they passed, following their movement. Leora stumbled. Iris caught her arm, pulling her upright. Keep going, Iris urged. Don't look back. But Leora did, and she screamed. Iris turned. Behind them, the ice spires were closing in, bending inward like the jaws of a trap. Between them, shapes moved, humanoid silhouettes encased in frost, stumbling forward with jerky, unnatural motions. Frozen versions of themselves. Dozens. Some with cracked visors. Some with shattered limbs. Some half-merged with the ice, dragging crystalline tendrils behind them like roots. Jen's voice broke. They're following us. Iris forced herself to look away. Don't stop. Don't engage. They sprinted across the plain, boots slipping on the slick surface. The wind intensified, carrying whispers, faint, overlapping voices that sounded like their own. Iris, Jen, Leora, repeating their names in a chorus of distorted echoes. Leora clamped her hands over her ears. Make it stop. Jen stumbled, nearly falling. It's in the ice. The sound is traveling through the ice. Iris pushed forward. The ridge is close. Keep moving. The ground trembled beneath them. A deep, resonant vibration that made the ice ripple like water. A fissure tore open ahead, glowing with pale blue light. Iris skidded to a halt, nearly tumbling in. The chasm was vast, too wide to jump. The ice on either side cracked, widening the gap. Leora gasped. It's cutting us off. Jen pointed to the right. There. A narrow bridge. A thin arch of ice spanned the chasm, delicate as glass. It looked like it would shatter under a feather's weight. Iris hesitated only a moment. Go. One at a time. Leora crossed first, trembling with each step. The ice groaned beneath her, but held. Jen followed, moving quickly, breath ragged. Iris stepped onto the bridge. The ice flexed, cracked. She froze. A voice whispered beneath her feet, her own voice. You won't make it. Iris clenched her jaw and stepped forward. The bridge held. She crossed the final meter and leapt onto solid ground as the arch behind her shattered, collapsing into the glowing abyss. Leora grabbed her arm. It's learning. It's adapting to our choices. Iris nodded, breath shaking. Which means we need to stay unpredictable. Jen stared at her. How do we do that when it already knows every version of us? Iris didn't answer. They continued toward the ridge. The terrain grew steeper, the ice forming jagged steps. The wind died suddenly, replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. Leora shivered. Why did it stop? Jen checked his pad. Temperatures stabilizing. Iris frowned. Stabilizing. Jen nodded. -100. It's holding steady. Leora's voice trembled. Why would it do that? Iris scanned the ridge. Because it wants us alive. They reached the top and froze. The secondary comms relay stood before them. Twisted, half-melted, encased in a cocoon of ice. But that wasn't what made Iris's stomach drop. It was the bodies. 3 of them, frozen solid, standing upright, facing the relay. Iris, Jen, Leora, each wearing mission patches dated weeks into the future. Leora collapsed to her knees. No. No, no, no. Jen backed away, shaking violently. This is impossible. We can't be here and there. Iris approached the frozen version slowly. Her counterpart's visor was cracked, revealing frostbitten skin and hollow eyes. Her mouth was open as if mid-scream. Jen's frozen version had one arm raised, reaching toward the relay. Leora's had collapsed forward, hands pressed against the ice. Iris's breath fogged her visor. These are future iterations, versions that made it this far. Leora sobbed. And they still died. Jen kicked at the ice in frustration. Then what's the point? Every path ends the same. Iris stared at her frozen self. Not every path. Not yet. The ice around the relay pulsed faintly, glowing with internal light. The hum returned. Deeper, more resonant, vibrating through the ridge. Leora clutched her head. It's louder here. Jen staggered. It's communicating. Iris stepped closer to the relay. The ice pulsed again, brighter, and the hum shifted into a pattern. Rhythmic, structured, not random, intentional, a signal. Iris's breath caught. It's not just reacting, it's transmitting. Jen blinked. Transmitting what? Iris placed her hand on the ice. It was warm. The hum intensified, vibrating through her arm, up her spine, into her skull. Images flashed behind her eyes. A vast network of ice beneath the surface. Branching, interconnected, pulsing with light like neural pathways. A core deep within the moon, glowing with impossible energy. A sense of awareness, of observation, of hunger. Iris jerked her hand back, gasping. Leora grabbed her shoulders. What did you see? Iris struggled to find words. It's not a moon. It's not geological. It's a structure, a system, a living network. Jen stared at her. Alive. Not in a biological sense, Iris said. More like a consciousness distributed through the ice. A planetary neural lattice. Leora's voice cracked. Then why is it killing us? Iris looked at the frozen versions of themselves. It's not killing us. It's studying us. Jen's face twisted. Studying? Iris nodded slowly. Every timeline, every choice, every iteration is mapping us, learning us, predicting us. Leora backed away. Why? Iris swallowed hard. Because it wants something. The hum deepened, vibrating the ridge. The ice around the relay cracked, splitting open like a chrysalis. Inside was not machinery. It was a chamber, a hollow sphere of ice, glowing with pale blue light. Tendrils of frost extended from its walls, pulsing rhythmically. A heartbeat. Jen stepped back. We shouldn't be here. Leora shook her head. We need to leave. Now. Iris stared into the chamber. This is the core of the relay. The moon hijacked it. It's using it as an interface. The hum shifted again, becoming a pattern of tones. Ascending, descending, repeating. A message. Iris felt the meaning behind it, not words but intent. Enter. She stepped back instinctively. It wants us inside. Jen grabbed her arm. Absolutely not. Leora shook her head violently. Every version that came here died. Iris looked at the frozen bodies. Maybe they didn't enter. Jen stared at her in horror. You can't be serious. Iris's voice was steady. Every timeline we've seen ends with us trying to escape. Running. Fighting. Maybe the only path we haven't taken is the one it wants. Leora's voice trembled. You think entering that thing will save us? Iris shook her head. I don't know, but every other choice ends in ice. The hum intensified, vibrating through their bones. Enter. The chamber pulsed, the light brightening. Jen stepped between Iris and the opening. This is suicide. Iris met his gaze. So is everything else. Leora wiped her visor. If we go in, what happens? Iris looked into the glowing chamber. We find out what it wants. The wind died completely. The ice stilled. The entire moon seemed to hold its breath. Iris stepped forward. Jen grabbed her arm. If you go, we go. Leora nodded weakly. Together. Iris hesitated, then nodded. They stepped into the chamber. The ice closed behind them. The light intensified, blinding. The hum became a roar, and the world dissolved. Part 4. Light swallowed them whole. Not bright. Total. A white so absolute it erased depth, erased shadow, erased the idea of space. Iris felt her body dissolve into it. Her limbs unmoored, her breath suspended. She tried to speak, but her voice had no sound. She tried to move, but movement had no meaning. Then the light fractured. Not dimmed, split. Shards of radiance peeled away like layers of glass, revealing slivers of other places, other moments. Iris saw herself standing in the outpost hub, staring at the frozen version of her own body. She saw herself running across the plain, falling into the fissure, screaming as the ice swallowed her. She saw herself in the crawler, laughing with Jen and Leora before any of this began. All at once, all overlapping, all true. A voice threaded through the fractures. Not spoken, not heard, but felt. You are not singular. The light folded inward, collapsing into a sphere around them. Iris's senses snapped back into place. Suit, body, breath, heartbeat. But the chamber was gone. They stood in a vast expanse of ice, stretching infinitely in all directions, lit from below by a soft blue glow. Jen staggered, clutching his helmet. What is this place? Leora spun in a slow circle, eyes wide. We're inside the moon. Iris shook her head. No, this isn't physical space. The ice beneath their feet rippled like water, sending concentric waves outward. Each wave carried images: frozen bodies, collapsing corridors, branching timelines, like reflections on a disturbed lake. Jen pointed. Look! A figure approached across the ice. Human. Familiar. Iris's breath caught. It was her. Another Iris. This version's suit was scorched, visor cracked, one arm missing below the elbow. Frost clung to her like a second skin. She moved with slow, deliberate steps, as if each one cost her something. Leora whispered, "Is she alive?" The other Iris stopped a few meters away. Her visor flickered, then went transparent. Her face was gaunt, eyes hollow, lips blue. She spoke without sound, but the words formed directly in Iris's mind. "You shouldn't have come." Iris stepped forward. "We didn't have a choice." The other Iris shook her head slowly. "There are always choices. That's the problem." Jen swallowed hard. "What is this place? What is the moon?" The other Iris turned her gaze toward the glowing ice beneath them. "It's not a moon. It's a memory. A recorder. Preserver. Captures every possibility, every outcome, every version of us." Leora shivered. "Why? Why us?" The other Iris's expression twisted. Anger, grief, resignation. "Because we touched it. Because we observed it. Because we became part of its system." Iris felt a cold weight settle in her chest. A quantum observer effect. The other Iris nodded. On a planetary scale, it doesn't just react to observation. It stores it. Every timeline, every iteration, every failure. Jen's voice cracked. "Then how do we break the loop?" The other Iris looked at him with something like pity. "You don't. That's the first thing every version of us learns." Leora stepped forward, tears streaking her visor. "Then why are you here? Why show yourself?" The other Iris hesitated. "Because you're closer than any of us have ever been." The ice beneath them pulsed, and the fractured light returned, shards of alternate timelines flickering around them like broken mirrors. Iris saw herself entering the chamber alone, saw herself refusing to enter, saw herself dying on the ridge, saw herself frozen in the medical bay, saw herself escaping in the shuttle, only for the moon to pull it back down like a hooked fish. Every version ended in ice. The other Iris stepped closer, her remaining hand trembling. "It doesn't want to kill us. It wants to understand us. But it can't. Not fully. Not while we keep making choices." Iris frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means the loop continues because we continue to diverge. Every decision creates another branch, another version, another failure." Jen shook his head. "So what? We stop choosing? That's impossible." The other Iris's gaze locked onto Iris's. "Not impossible. Just final." Iris felt her stomach twist. "You're saying we have to surrender?" "Not surrender. Converge. Become singular. One path. One outcome. No branches. No divergence." Leora's voice broke. "That sounds like death." The other Iris didn't deny it. The ice pulsed again, brighter, and the fractured timelines around them shifted. One shard showed Iris kneeling beside Jen's frozen body. Another showed Leora alone, screaming into the void. Another showed all three of them standing together, hands clasped, as the ice closed over them. Iris forced herself to breathe. "If convergence is the only way, how do we do it?" The other Iris stepped back. "That's where every version fails. We can't agree. We can't align. We can't choose the same path." Jen clenched his fists. "Then tell us what to do." The other Iris's expression softened. "I can't. If I tell you, it becomes another branch, another divergence, another failure." Leora shook her head. "Then why bring us here?" The other Iris looked up. The ice above them cracked open like a splitting sky. Beyond it was not space, not stars, not darkness, but a vast lattice of light, interconnected nodes stretching into infinity, pulsing with the same rhythm as the ice beneath their feet. A neural network. Consciousness. A mind. This is what watches you. The voice was not the other irises. It was the moon. The lattice pulsed, and the fractured timelines around them accelerated. Flashing faster, overlapping, merging, splitting. Iris felt her thoughts fragment, her memories blur, her sense of self stretch thin. Jen screamed, clutching his helmet. "It's inside my head." Leora fell to her knees, sobbing. "Make it stop. Please. Make it stop." Iris staggered, fighting to hold onto herself. "What do you want from us?" The lattice pulsed again. Understanding. The timelines flickered faster. Iris saw herself as a child. Saw herself on the shuttle to K347F. Saw herself frozen in the ice. Saw herself dying in a dozen different ways. Saw herself standing here now, asking the same question in 1,000 iterations. "You are fractured." The light intensified. "You must become one." The other Iris stepped forward, her form flickering. "This is where I failed. Where we all failed. You have to choose. Together." Iris forced her voice steady. "Choose what?" The other Iris's form dissolved into light. "Which version of you survives?" The ice beneath them cracked. The lattice above them pulsed. The fractured timelines converged into a single blinding point. And the chamber collapsed. Part 5. The chamber shattered like glass. Not outward, inward. The world folded into itself, collapsing into a single point of blinding blue light. Iris felt her body stretch, compress, dissolve, reform. She reached for Jen and Leora, but her hands passed through them like mist. Then the light snapped, and they were standing on solid ground again. Except it wasn't ground. It was a surface made of overlapping reflections, shimmering planes of ice that showed not their faces, but other faces. Other versions. Other timelines. Each reflection moved independently, like 1,000 selves trapped beneath the surface. Jen staggered. Where are we now?" Leora clutched her helmet. "This isn't real. It can't be real." Iris steadied herself. "It's real enough. The moon is showing us the convergence point." The ice beneath them pulsed, and the reflections shifted, aligning, synchronizing, forming a single coherent image. 3 figures stood across from them. Iris, Jen, Leora, but not the one standing here. These versions were older, weathered, scarred. Their suits were patched with makeshift repairs, their visors cracked, their movements slow and deliberate. The older Iris stepped forward. Her voice echoed without sound, resonating directly in their minds. "We've been waiting for you." Jen flinched. "What are you? Another timeline?" The older Jen nodded. "A timeline that lasted longer than most. We survived 32 days before the moon consumed us." Leora's voice trembled. "How?" The older Leora stepped forward, her movements stiff. "By refusing to choose. By delaying. By hiding. By running." The older Iris's gaze hardened. "But the moon always finds us. Every version. Every path." Iris swallowed. "Then why are we here? Why bring us to this place?" The older Iris gestured to the shimmering ice beneath their feet. "This is the convergence field. The moon's core. The place where all timelines intersect." Jen shook his head. "Why show it to us?" "Because you're the closest any version has come to understanding what it wants." The ice pulsed again, and the reflections beneath them shifted, showing scenes from countless timelines. Iris saw herself arguing with Jen in the outpost hub. Saw Leora refusing to leave the crawler. Saw Jen trying to sabotage the moon's ice structures. Saw herself alone, wandering the frozen plain, screaming into the void. Every version ended the same way. Frozen. Consumed. Erased. Leora covered her visor with both hands. "Why us? Why this loop?" The older Jen stepped forward. "Because the moon is not a predator. It's a recorder, preserver, a consciousness built to observe and archive every possible outcome of every interaction." Iris frowned. "A quantum archive." The older Iris nodded. "Exactly. It doesn't understand linear time. It doesn't understand singularity. It only understands possibility. And we keep giving it more. Jen's voice cracked. So what does it want from us? The older Iris's expression softened. It wants us to collapse the wave. To become one version. One outcome. One path. Leora shook her head violently. That's impossible. We're 3 people. The older Leora stepped closer. Not 3. 3,000. 3 million. Every version of us that ever existed in this loop. The ice beneath them pulsed again, and the reflections shifted, showing countless versions of themselves standing in this exact spot, facing this exact moment. Iris felt her breath catch. This is the convergence crisis. The older Iris nodded. Yes. And every version of us has failed here. Jen stepped forward. Why? What do we have to do? The older Jen's voice was heavy. Choose which version survives. Silence fell like a physical weight. Leora's voice was barely audible. You mean, one of us? The older Leora shook her head. Not one person. One timeline. One version of the team. One path. Iris felt the meaning settle in her bones. Only one version of Iris. One version of Jen. One version of Leora. All others must collapse. Jen backed away. No, we can't do that. We can't decide who lives and who. The older Jen cut him off. You misunderstand. You're not choosing who dies. You're choosing which version becomes real. Which version the moon will allow to exist. Leora's voice cracked. But how do we choose? The older Iris stepped forward, her form flickering. That's where every version fails. We argue. We panic. We refuse. And the moon interprets that as divergence. As branching. As failure. Iris clenched her fists. Then what's the right choice? The older Iris's expression twisted with something like sorrow. There is no right choice. Only a unified one. The ice beneath them pulsed again, brighter, and the reflections shifted, showing 3 versions of the team standing together, hands clasped, stepping into the ice willingly. Iris felt her stomach twist. It wants us to merge. The older Iris nodded. Yes, to collapse into a single version, a single consciousness, a single path. Jen shook his head violently. That's suicide. The older Jen's voice was calm. Is transcendence, or annihilation, or both. We never found out. Leora stepped back. We can't do this. We can't merge. We're not the same. The older Leora's voice was soft. None of us are. That's the point. The ice beneath them cracked. A fissure opened, revealing a swirling vortex of blue light, pulsing with the same rhythm as the moon's neural lattice. The moon spoke again. Choose. The vortex expanded, tendrils of light reaching toward them. Become one. Iris felt the pull, gentle, insistent, inevitable. Jen grabbed her arm. Iris, don't. We don't know what happens if we... Leora screamed as the light wrapped around her legs. It's pulling us in. The older versions stepped back, their forms dissolving into the reflections. This is where we failed. This is where you must succeed. The vortex surged, the ice shattered, and the 3 of them were pulled into the light. Part 6. The Merging Ordeal. The light swallowed them again, but this time it had weight. It pressed against their bodies like deep ocean pressure, squeezing thought and breath into thin, trembling threads. Iris tried to scream, but the sound dissolved before it left her throat. Jen reached for her, but his arm stretched into a smear of motion, as if time itself were melting. Leora's voice flickered through the void, fragmented into overlapping echoes. Iris, Iris, Iris. Then even the echoes broke apart. The world reassembled in pieces. Not whole pieces. Versions. Iris blinked, and each blink showed a different reality. She stood in the outpost hub, staring at the frozen version of herself. She stood on the ridge, watching the shuttle collapse under a glacier. She stood alone in the crawler, sobbing into her gloves. She stood in a timeline where Jen was dead. She stood in a timeline where Leora never existed. She stood in a timeline where she herself had died days ago. All of them were true. All of them were her. The moon's voice vibrated through the fractured space. You are many. You must become one. The light snapped again. Iris found herself standing on a circular platform of ice suspended in a void of swirling blue. Jen and Leora stood beside her, except they weren't the only ones. Dozens of Jens, hundreds of Leoras, thousands of Iris. They flickered in and out of existence, overlapping like ghosts caught between frames of a broken film. Some were injured, some were frozen, some were screaming, some were calm, some were already dead. Jen staggered, clutching his head. I can't. There are too many. Leora fell to her knees, sobbing. They're all me. They're all me. Iris forced herself to breathe. Focus. We're still ourselves. We're still. A voice cut her off. Her own voice, but not from her throat. From behind her. She turned. Another Iris stood there. This one older, scarred, eyes hollow. The same version they had met in the convergence field. Except now she wasn't alone. A dozen versions of Iris stood behind her, forming a semicircle. Each one different. Each one broken in a different way. The older Iris stepped forward. This is the merging point. The moon is forcing all versions of us into a single decision space. Jen's voice cracked. What does that mean? It means we're out of time. The older Iris gestured to the swirling void around them. Every timeline is collapsing into this moment. Every version of us is being pulled here. The moon wants one outcome, one identity, one path. Leora wiped her visor. But how do we choose? How do we decide which version is the real one? The older Iris's expression twisted. You don't choose. You become. The platform beneath them pulsed. The void shifted. And suddenly the three of them were no longer standing together. They were standing inside each other's memories. Iris's fragment. She was 6 years old, standing on a frozen lake back on Earth. Her father's gloved hand wrapped around hers. The ice beneath her feet was thin, groaning, fracturing. Her father whispered, "Don't move. The ice reacts to pressure." The memory shattered. She was 23, staring at her first research assignment, quantum entanglement in cryogenic environments. Her mentor warned her, observation changes the system. Another fracture. She was 32, stepping onto K347F for the first time, feeling the cold seep into her bones. Then the memory folded inward, and she was back on the platform. Jen's fragment. He was 12, dismantling a broken drone in his bedroom, fascinated by how every part connected. His mother said, "Systems adapt. They learn from you." The scene dissolved. He was 28, arguing with a colleague about recursive AI loops. If the system predicts every outcome, he said, then the only unpredictable variable is us. Another fracture. He was 35, stepping into the crawler on K347F, unaware that the moon was already watching. Then he was back on the platform. Leora's fragment. She was 8, watching frost grow across a window pane, mesmerized by the branching patterns. Her grandmother whispered, "Ice remembers the shape of cold." The memory cracked. She was 25, studying extremophile organisms that adapted to impossible environments. "Life finds a way to persist," she said. Another fracture. She was 31, stepping onto the examoon, feeling the cold reach for her like a living thing. Then she was back. The platform pulsed again. The void shifted, and now they stood face to face with themselves. Not reflections, not ghosts, versions. Iris who had lost her arm, a Jen who had gone blind, a Leora who had frozen to death and been revived by the moon, Iris who had killed herself to avoid the loop, a Jen who had tried to destroy the moon's core, a Leora who had merged with the ice willingly. Each version stepped forward. Each version spoke in unison. Only one of you can exist. The moon's voice followed. Choose. The platform cracked. The void roared. And the alternate versions lunged. The confrontation. Iris dodged as a frozen version of herself swung a jagged shard of ice. Jian tackled a version of himself whose suit was fused with crystalline tendrils. Leora screamed as a half-merged version of her reached out, frost spreading from her fingertips. But the attacks weren't violent. They were desperate. Each version was trying to merge with them, trying to overwrite them, trying to become the singular version the moon demanded. Iris felt a hand grip her helmet. She turned, and found herself staring into her own eyes. A version of her that had survived longer than any other. A version who had endured 32 days of torment. A version who had lost everything. The older Iris whispered, "Let me be the one." Iris shook her head. "No, we decide together." The older Iris's expression twisted. "There is no together. There is only one." She lunged. Iris fell backward, skidding across the ice. The void pulsed, and the moon's voice thundered. "Converge." Jian screamed as 3 versions of himself pinned him down, their forms flickering between solid and spectral. Leora collapsed as a dozen versions of her surrounded her, whispering in overlapping voices, "Let me be the one. Choose me. I survived longer. I suffered more. I deserve to exist." Iris forced herself to her feet. "No," she whispered. "This isn't how we converge." She looked at Jian, at Leora, at the countless versions of themselves, and she understood. The moon didn't want them to choose a winner. It wanted them to choose a unity, a single identity made from all versions. Not one surviving, all merging. Iris stepped forward, raising her hands. "Stop fighting," she said. "Stop resisting. We're not supposed to eliminate each other. We're supposed to integrate." The alternate versions froze. Jen looked up, eyes wide. "Iris, what are you doing?" Leora whispered. "She's right. The moon doesn't want one of us. It wants all of us, collapsed into one version." The moon's voice vibrated through the void. Yes, the platform pulsed. The alternate versions stepped closer, not attacking now but dissolving into light. One by one, they merged into Iris, Jian, and Leora. Memories, experiences, pain, triumph, fear, and hope flooding into them like a tidal wave. Iris felt 1,000 lifetimes crash through her mind. Jian felt every failure and every attempt. Leora felt every death and every survival. Their identities blurred. Their memories overlapped. Their selves dissolved. And then, they became one. Part 7. Aftermath of the merge. The light faded slowly, like a long exhale. When sensation returned, it came in layers, first sound, then weight, then breath. Iris opened her eyes, expecting the void, the platform, the infinite lattice of timelines. Instead, she stood on the frozen plain outside the outpost. The sky was still, the wind silent, the ice beneath her boots smooth and unbroken. Jian stood to her left, Leora to her right, except they weren't just Jian and Leora. They were all Jians, all Leoras. Every version collapsed into one. Iris felt it in herself too, a density of memory, a weight of experience that no single mind should hold. She remembered dying. She remembered surviving. She remembered choices she had never made, regrets she had never earned, triumphs she had never lived. She remembered being frozen. She remembered escaping. She remembered merging. All at once. Jian touched his helmet. "I can hear myself." Leora nodded slowly. "Me too." Not thoughts. Echoes. Iris steadied her breath. "We're not 3 people anymore. We're 3 singularities." Jian looked at her. "Then why are we still separate?" Iris didn't answer. Because the moon wasn't finished. The ground trembled. A fissure opened beneath them. Not violent, but deliberate, like a door sliding open. Blue light pulsed from the depths, rhythmic and steady. The moon's voice rose from the chasm. "You are one." The light brightened. "Now choose your end." Leora stepped back. "End? What end?" The voice vibrated through their bones. "Escape, or transcendence." Jian frowned. "Escape? It's offering us a way out. Iris felt the truth behind the words, not spoken but implied. Escape meant leaving the moon, leaving the loop, returning to linear time. Transcendence meant becoming part of the moon's consciousness, joining the lattice, becoming eternal but no longer human. Leora shivered. It's giving us a choice. Iris shook her head. No, it's giving us a test. The fissure widened, revealing two paths. One path led downward into the glowing core, pulsing with the same rhythm as the neural lattice they had seen earlier. The other path led upward, toward the surface ridge, where the sky shimmered with a faint aurora, as if a portal waited just beyond sight. Jen stared at the two paths. Which one is real? Iris felt the merged memories swirl inside her. In one timeline, she had chosen the core and dissolved into light. In another, she had chosen the ridge and found herself back in the loop. In another, she had refused to choose and been frozen instantly. Every version had chosen differently. Every version had failed. Leora's voice trembled. If we choose escape, what happens to the moon? Iris answered without thinking. It continues. It always continues. It's not a trap. It's a recorder. Jen looked at the glowing core. And if we choose transcendence? Iris felt the answer like a whisper in her blood. We become part of it. We become the observers, the archivists, the next layer of the lattice. Leora hugged herself. That's not living. Jen shook his head. But escape might not be either. The fissure pulsed again. Choose. Iris closed her eyes. Inside her mind, the merged memories aligned, like stars forming a constellation. She saw every version of herself that had chosen escape. They had all failed. She saw every version that had chosen transcendence. They had all dissolved. But she saw something else too. A third path. Path no version had ever taken. Not escape. Not transcendence. Integration. Iris opened her eyes. We don't choose either. Jen stared at her. What? Leora shook her head. Iris, the moon said. The moon doesn't understand choice, Iris said. It understands outcomes. It understands patterns. It understands collapse. But it doesn't understand intention. Jen frowned. Explain. Iris stepped to the edge of the fissure. Every version of us chose one path or the other. That's why every version failed. The moon expects a binary decision. It expects divergence. Leora's eyes widened. So we give it something it doesn't expect. Iris nodded. We choose both. Jen blinked. How do we choose both? Iris reached out her hands. One to Jen. One to Leora. They hesitated only a moment before taking them. Iris stepped forward. Not toward the core. Not toward the ridge. But directly into the fissure. Into the space between the paths. The moon's voice thundered. This is not a path. Iris shouted into the void. It is now. The fissure convulsed, the light flickering violently. The ground shook, ice cracking in jagged lines. The sky darkened, the aurora collapsing inward. Jen gripped her hand tighter. Iris, what's happening? Leora's voice trembled. It's resisting. The moon roared. You cannot create a new outcome. Iris stepped deeper into the fissure. Yes, she whispered. We can. The light surged upward, engulfing them. The merged memories inside them aligned. Every version, every choice, every failure, collapsing into a single unified intention. Not escape, not transcendence. Integration. The moon screamed. The fissure exploded with light, and the world vanished. The final test. Iris opened her eyes. She stood in the outpost hub. The lights were on. The air was warm. The ice was gone. Jen stood beside her. Leora stood behind her. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Jen whispered, Are we back? Leora shook her head. No, this is a construct. Iris felt it too. The air was too still. The silence too perfect. The outpost too clean. The moon was testing them. A voice echoed through the hub. If you are one, you will know the truth. Iris stepped forward. She touched the console. It flickered. Not with data. With memories. Her memories. Jen's memories. Leora's memories. Every version. Every timeline. Every loop. All aligned. All coherent. All singular. Iris turned to the others. We passed. Jen exhaled shakily. So what now? The moon's voice softened. Now you choose your future. The hub dissolved. The ice returned. The sky opened. A single path appeared before them, straight, narrow, glowing with pale blue light. Not escape. Not transcendence. A future. One they would create themselves. Leora smiled through tears. We did it. Jen nodded. We're free. Iris stepped onto the path. The moon did not resist. The ice did not rise. The temperature did not drop. The loop did not reset. For the first time, the moon was silent. Iris whispered into the stillness. We choose to live. The path brightened. The world shifted. And the three of them walked forward. Together, unified, singular. Into whatever waited beyond the Frostline. Part 8. The New Future. The path of pale blue light stretched across the frozen plain like a vein of living ice. Iris walked at the front, Jen and Leora beside her. Their steps synchronized without effort. The merged memories inside them pulsed in quiet harmony. No longer chaotic, no longer overwhelming, but integrated, layered, coherent. The moon was silent, not dead, not dormant, simply listening. The sky above shimmered with faint auroras, their colors shifting in slow, deliberate waves. The air was still, warmer than it had ever been since they arrived. The ice beneath their boots did not crack or groan. It held steady, as if acknowledging their presence rather than resisting it. Jen exhaled. It feels different. Leora nodded. It's not watching us anymore. Iris felt the truth settle in her chest. It doesn't need to. They walked in silence for a long time, the path guiding them toward the horizon. The outpost lay behind them, half buried in frost, but no longer threatening. The ice spires had softened, their jagged edges rounded, their movements stilled. The moon had changed, or they had, maybe both. The horizon gate. After what felt like hours or minutes or days, time flowed strangely now. The path ended at a ridge overlooking a vast expanse of shimmering ice. At the center of the plain, a circular depression glowed with soft blue light, swirling like a slow whirlpool. Leora stepped forward. Is that? Jen nodded. A gate, a real one. Iris felt the moon's presence. Not as a voice, but as a sensation, a gentle pressure behind her thoughts. Go. Not a command. An invitation. The gate pulsed, and the ice around it shifted, forming a smooth ramp leading downward. Leora hesitated. If we step through, where does it take us? Jen looked at Iris. Back to the shuttle? Back to orbit? Back to Earth? Iris shook her head. Not back. Forward. Leora frowned. Forward to what? Iris closed her eyes. Inside her mind, the merged memories aligned again, showing glimpses of possible futures. Some bright, some dark, some incomprehensible. But all of them shared one thing. They were not loops. They were lines, paths, choices, real ones. Iris opened her eyes. Forward to whatever we choose. Jen exhaled shakily. Then let's choose together. Leora smiled softly. For the first time we can. They stepped toward the gate. The ice beneath them warmed. The light brightened. The moon's presence swelled. Not oppressive, not invasive, but curious, like a vast intelligence leaning closer to observe something new, something unprecedented, something it had never recorded before. Singularity achieved. The words resonated through the air, through the ice, through their bones. Loop terminated. The gate flared with brilliant light, and the world dissolved. The return. Iris blinked. She was standing on the landing pad. The shuttle rested beside her, its hull unmarred, its systems humming softly. The sky above was clear, the gas giant looming overhead in serene silence. Jen stood beside her. Leora stood behind her. All three of them were breathing. Alive. Free. Jen checked his wristpad. Systems are normal. No anomalies. No interference. Leora scanned the horizon. The ice is stable. Temperature is rising. Iris looked up at the sky. The moon let us go. Jen frowned. Why now? Why us? Iris felt the answer inside her, not as a memory, but as an understanding. Because we became what it needed us to be. A single observer. A single outcome. A single story. Leora touched her helmet. And now, Iris smiled faintly. Now we write the next chapter. They boarded the shuttle. The engines warmed. The landing pad vibrated. The shuttle lifted off, rising smoothly into the sky. The exomoon shrank beneath them, its surface shimmering with faint blue veins. No longer hostile, no longer reactive, simply alive. As they ascended, the moon's presence brushed against their minds one last time. Not a voice, a feeling, gratitude, curiosity, farewell. Then it faded. The shuttle broke through the upper atmosphere, the stars unfolding before them. Jen exhaled. We're really leaving. Leora wiped her visor. We did it. Iris looked out at the moon, now a pale sphere against the darkness. We changed it, she whispered. And it changed us. The debrief. Hours later, the shuttle docked with the orbital station. The crew aboard stared in shock as Iris, Jen, and Leora stepped out. Alive, coherent, and carrying data logs that defied every known law of physics. The debrief lasted days. They explained the loop, the ice, the timelines, the convergence, the merge, the moon's consciousness, the choice. Most of it was met with disbelief, some with fear, some with awe. But the three of them spoke with one voice, aligned, unified, certain. They were no longer three separate individuals. They were three facets of a single experience, a single truth, a single outcome, and the world listened. The moon's future. Months passed. Probes were sent to the exomoon. None encountered loops. None encountered anomalies. None encountered frozen versions of themselves. The moon was quiet, stable, dormant, but not dead. Scientists detected faint pulses beneath the surface. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Planetary mind at rest. A recorder with nothing left to record. A consciousness waiting for something new. Some argued it should be left alone. Some argued it should be studied. Some argued it should be feared. Iris, Jen, and Leora, now inseparable, now a single team in every sense, were asked for their recommendation. They answered together. Observe it, respect it, learn from it, but do not disturb it. The moon had given them a future. They would not take its past. The final echo. Years later, Iris stood alone on the observation deck of the research vessel Horizon Arc, watching the exomoon drift across the starfield. Jen and Leora were nearby, reviewing data, their presence a constant hum in her mind. The moon pulsed faintly, a single soft echo. Iris felt it. A question, a greeting, a memory. She smiled. We're still here, she whispered. And we remember you. The moon shimmered, the pulse faded, and the future stretched out before them. Open, unlooked, unwritten. For the first time. This is the end of the sci-fi story, Frostline Echo. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.